The village had always been known for its tranquility and peacefulness. The people who lived there were close-knit and friendly. They took care of each other and lived in harmony with the nature that surrounded them. But after that night, everything changed. The stranger had arrived in the village earlier that day, and some villagers had seen him walking along the road. He seemed lost and disoriented, so they had offered to help him. But the stranger had refused, saying he needed to find his way alone. Later that night, when the stranger knocked on the family's door, they recognized him immediately. He was the same man they had seen earlier in the day. They didn't want to turn him away, so they let him in. At first, the stranger seemed grateful and friendly. He shared stories about his travels and asked the family about their lives. But as the night wore on, his behavior became more and more erratic. He started muttering to himself, and his eyes would dart around the room as if he was seeing things that weren't there. The family started to feel uneasy, but they didn't want to be rude to their guest. They offered him food and a place to sleep, hoping he would calm down. But instead, the stranger became increasingly agitated. He began pacing back and forth, his eyes wild with fear. Suddenly, he pulled out a knife and lunged at the family. They tried to defend themselves, but they were no match for the stranger's strength and madness. The house was filled with screams and the sound of breaking furniture as the stranger attacked them. When the authorities arrived, they found a scene of utter carnage. The family had been brutally murdered, their bodies lying in pools of blood. The stranger was nowhere to be found, and a search of the woods turned up no clues. For months, the villagers lived in fear, afraid that the killer would strike again. They locked their doors at night and avoided strangers at all costs. But eventually, life returned to normal, and the memory of that terrible night faded away. However, some villagers claimed that they could still feel the stranger's presence, watching them from the shadows. They said that on quiet nights, they could hear his laughter and the sound of his footsteps echoing through the woods. The village had become haunted by the memory of that night, a reminder that evil can lurk even in the most peaceful of places.